An ordinary employee, unfair dismissal, and a cunning plan for revenge that drove his boss crazy. What happened to his expensive briefcase? Why is the whole office whispering behind his back? And how did this story end? I still remember the moment when my life at Vertex Corp turned to crap. It was a Tuesday, not that it matters, but for some reason, bad things always happen on Tuesdays. The office was business as usual, fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps, the smell of burnt coffee wafted from the break room, and Karen from accounting clicked her pen as if she were spelling out, "I hate my job," in Morse code. I had been working at Vertex for 6 years. 6 years of coming in early, leaving late, eating boring salads from the office cafeteria, and pretending to be interested in quarterly reports. I wasn't a superstar, but I did my job, kept my head down, and didn't cause any problems. Hell, I even covered for Dalton when he worked from home after the company golf tournament. So when his assistant Emily, a nice girl, too smart for the place, called me into his office, I didn't think much of it. Maybe another pointless project. Maybe he finally decided to fix the printer that's been jammed since the Obama administration. But then I saw his face. That fake sympathetic look bosses put on before they drop a bombshell on you. "Mark," he said, folding his arms like some cheap villain, "we're making some tough decisions. Budget cuts." I blinked. Budget cuts? Company-wide reorganization, he said, as if that made it any better. Just like that. No warning. No, "Hey, things are going badly." Just, "You're fired." I should have seen it coming. The whispers about streamlining. Dalton's sudden interest in performance metrics. But I figured if anyone got fired, it would be Dave from IT, who once spent a week trying to set a screensaver. I was given 20 minutes to clear my desk. No farewell cake. No, "let's stay friends." Just a security guard circling around me as if I was about to steal a stapler on my way out. And then, imagine this, the next day, I found out from a friend who still works at Vertex that Dalton's nephew, some guy who just graduated from college with no experience, was sitting at my old desk. Same job. Same title. Just, not me. Budget cuts, right? That night, I sat in my car outside my apartment, staring at my key card that no longer worked, and I realized one thing: Dalton didn't just fire me. He disrespected me. And in this world, there are two things you don't do. You don't spit in someone's coffee, and you don't fire someone because of family obligations. But fine. If he wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. For 3 days after getting canned, I did nothing but sit on my couch in sweatpants, eating cold pizza and watching reruns of Judge Judy. My girlfriend kept telling me to process my emotions, or whatever, but honestly, I wasn't sad. I was pissed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dalton's smug face saying, "budget cuts," while his idiot nephew probably spilled coffee all over my old desk. Then, on Thursday morning, it hit me. I was scrolling through my phone, half-heartedly looking at job postings, because apparently 6 years of middle management experience qualifies you for exactly nothing, when a text popped up from my old coworker, Dave. "Dude, you should see this place. Dalton's walking around like he owns the world. Just bought some $1,500 Italian briefcase, keeps bragging about it in meetings." That's when I remembered Dalton's stupid obsession with his professional image. The guy had a collection of designer pens he never used, a watch he constantly adjusted for no reason, and now this overpriced leather bag. It was his security blanket, his way of pretending he was some Wall Street big shot instead of a mid-level manager at a company that sold printer ink. I sat up so fast I almost knocked over my coffee. That was it. That was how I'd get him. See, here's the thing about guys like Dalton: they care more about appearances than anything else. Fire a loyal employee? No problem. But let someone dent their precious ego? That's war. I called Dave back. "What's the briefcase look like?" Brown? Leather? Has some fancy brand name, Montero or something?" "Bingo. I spent the rest of the day researching. Turns out, Montero briefcases are like the Rolls-Royce of office accessories, hand-stitched, full-grain Italian leather, whatever that means. They're also ridiculously easy to spot. Shiny brass locks, a specific stitching pattern, even a little serial number inside. By midnight, I had a plan. First step, find an identical-looking briefcase. Not the real deal, no way I was dropping $1,000 just for revenge, but something close enough that a quick glance wouldn't tip him off. Second step, modify it. I'm no tech genius, but I know my way around a Bluetooth speaker. A small one, hidden in the lining, programmed to go off at random times. Maybe play some unsettling sounds. Oh, that'd drive him nuts. The best part? Even if he figured it out, what was he gonna do? Complain to HR that his ex-employee was haunting his luggage? Please. I fell asleep grinning for the first time in days. The next morning, I woke up with a mission. I wasn't just some disgruntled ex-employee anymore, I was a man with a purpose. After 3 cups of gas station coffee that tasted like burnt tires, I hit every thrift store and pawn shop within 20 miles of my apartment. My first stop was Goodwill, where they had exactly 0 leather briefcases but approximately 700 copies of 50 Shades of Grey. The old lady behind the counter gave me a weird look when I asked if they ever got high-end office supplies in stock. "You looking for a briefcase, honey?" she asked. "We got this nice JanSport backpack from '98. I checked 2 more thrift stores before striking gold at a sketchy-looking pawn shop called Cash Now, next to a payday loan place. The guy behind the bulletproof glass had a neck tattoo that said MOM in Gothic letters and smelled like cheap cigars. "What you need?" he grunted. "Leather briefcase. Brown. Professional looking." He disappeared into the back and returned with 3 options. The first looked like it had survived World War II. The second was bright red, no way Dalton would be caught dead with that. But the third was perfect. It wasn't a real Montero, no way something that nice would end up here, but from 5 feet away. Dead ringer. Same rich brown color, same shiny brass hardware, even the stitching looked similar. The inside was a little worn, but that didn't matter for my purposes. "How much?" $75. "I'll give you 40. We settled on $50 cash. As I walked out with my prize, I realized I was sweating like I just robbed a bank. Back in my apartment, I got to work. I ordered a tiny Bluetooth speaker off Amazon, one of those flat ones meant to hide under furniture. While I waited for delivery, I practiced taking the briefcase apart. The lining came up easy enough with an X-Acto knife, leaving just enough space to tuck the speaker near the bottom where it wouldn't make a bulge. When the speaker arrived, I spent an entire afternoon programming it with my phone. A few random sound clips, a baby giggling, a distant scream from some horror movie, the Law and Order, dun-dun sound effect. Nothing too obvious, just enough to make Dalton question his sanity. The real masterpiece? I set it to activate randomly between 30 minutes and 4 hours after being moved. No pattern. No predictability. Just pure psychological warfare. I tested it by leaving the briefcase in my closet overnight. At 3:17 a.m., I was jolted awake by the sound of a cat meowing mournfully from behind my shoes. Perfect. Now all I needed was to get this thing into Dalton's hands. I still had my keycard. That was the thought that hit me when I woke up on Monday morning. They'd cut off my email access before I'd even cleared out my desk, but somehow, no one had remembered to take back the stupid plastic card that beeped when you swiped it. Maybe HR was too busy processing Dalton's nephew's paperwork. I shaved for the first time in a week, put on my least wrinkled button-down, and practiced my "just here to pick up my stuff" face in the mirror. The fake briefcase sat on my kitchen table, looking every bit as expensive and pretentious as the real deal. I'd even rubbed some leather conditioner into it to give it that rich executive smell. The office building looked exactly the same revolving door that always stuck, same security guard, old Martinez, half asleep at the front desk. I held my breath as I swiped my card. Beep. Green light. Martinez glanced up. Hey, Mark. You back? Just grabbing some personal things from my desk, I said, holding up an empty duffel bag as proof. He nodded and went back to his crossword. The elevator ride up to the 12th floor felt longer than usual. I kept adjusting my grip on the fake briefcase, my palms sweating against the leather. What if Dalton was at his desk? What if someone questioned why I was carrying a briefcase when I didn't work here anymore? But when the doors opened, I got lucky. The receptionist's desk was empty, probably on her lunch break. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see Dalton holding court in some big meeting, pointer in hand like he was some kind of corporate Napoleon. His office door was slightly ajar. Classic Dalton, too important to bother closing it all the way. I slipped inside. There it was, the real Montero briefcase, leaning against his oversized executive chair like a trophy. My heart pounded so loud I was sure someone would hear it. I took 3 deep breaths and counted to 10 like my therapist always said to do. The swap took less than 5 seconds. Out with the real one, in with my modified version. I even made sure to position it at the exact same angle. Then I saw it, Dalton's coffee mug, half full and still steaming. Without thinking, I grabbed it and took a long sip. Tasted like expensive, bitter crap. Just like him. I set it back down exactly where it had been, turned, and walked out. The whole thing took maybe 20 seconds. I rode the elevator back down with Dalton's real briefcase in my duffel bag, half expecting alarms to start blaring. But nothing happened. Martinez barely glanced up as I walked out into the afternoon sun. For the first time since getting fired, I smiled. I almost choked on my cereal when Dave's text came through. Dude. You gotta hear this. Dalton just stormed out of a meeting with the VPs looking like he saw a ghost. My spoon hovered mid-air as 3 little dots appeared. Dave was typing again. They were in the middle of that big Thompson account presentation when suddenly he starts looking around all crazy, asking if anyone else heard that. Then he straight up left. Jenny says he went to the bathroom to splash water on his face. I grinned so wide my cheeks hurt. It had worked. The speaker had activated right on cue. Dave called me 2 hours later, barely containing his laughter. Okay, so get this, Dalton comes back from the bathroom all composed, right? Like nothing happened. Then maybe 20 minutes later, during the Q&A part, he suddenly drops his pen and starts patting his stupid briefcase like it's a dog that barked. What did he say? I asked, trying to sound casually interested instead of giddy. Nothing. That's the best part. He just got all red in the face and pretended he dropped something. But get this, when Sandra went to grab some papers from his briefcase after the meeting, he practically yanked it away from her. Dude's acting paranoid as hell. I wished I could have seen it myself, the great Richard Dalton, VP of whatever, jumping at phantom noises. The man who fired me for budget cuts while wearing a $3,000 suit, now afraid of his own damn briefcase. That night, I treated myself to a steak dinner with the money I'd saved by not buying lunch at Vertex's overpriced cafeteria all week. As I cut into the medium-rare ribeye, I imagined Dalton sitting at home, that fancy briefcase locked in his hall closet, jumping every time his fridge hummed. The speaker was programmed to get progressively weirder. Day 1 was just faint giggling. Day 2 would feature occasional whispers. By Friday, if my timing was right during the big executive summit, it would play the opening bars of Another One Bites the Dust at just the right moment. I raised my glass of iced tea in a silent toast. Here's to corporate revenge served ice cold. By Thursday, the whole damn office was talking about it. Dave's texts were coming in like a play-by-play sports broadcast. First it was just Dalton acting jumpy during meetings. Then came the real gold, the briefcase started singing in public. You're not gonna believe this, Dave wrote. Dalton was in the elevator with 3 junior analysts when suddenly that Benny Hill circus music starts playing from his briefcase. The dude straight up dropped his phone. I nearly spit out my coffee imagining it, Dalton in his fancy suit, that pompous look wiped right off his face as yakety sax tinkled out of his precious Montero. The best part? He couldn't even blame anyone. Not when he'd been carrying that briefcase like it was the damn nuclear codes all week. The office gossip mill went into overdrive. Jenny from accounting texted me that Dalton's assistant, Emily, thought it was some elaborate prank he was pulling. Apparently she'd asked him about it point blank, and he'd turned the color of bad meatloaf before changing the subject. Meanwhile, the IT guys were getting dragged into it. Dave sent me a picture of two techs kneeling by Dalton's desk like bomb squad technicians, scanning his briefcase with some gadget while Dalton hovered over them sweating through his dress shirt. Their official diagnosis? Must be interference from the building's Wi-Fi. I programmed the speaker to activate at perfect moments, just often enough to keep him paranoid, but never when he was ready for it. A soft cough during his one-on-one with the CEO. The sound of a pencil snapping when he was alone in his office. Once, during a client lunch, it emitted a perfect fart noise right as he reached for his salad fork. The real kicker. People were starting to avoid him. I heard the interns had a betting pool going about whether the briefcase was haunted or if Dalton was finally cracking under pressure. The maintenance guys started calling it the magic bag behind his back. Sitting in my apartment with Dalton's real briefcase gathering dust in my closet, I realized something beautiful. I hadn't just pranked him. I'd turned his precious status symbol into a laughingstock. That briefcase was supposed to scream, "Important executive." Now it just made people edge away slowly when he walked by. The text came through at 11:37 a.m. on Friday, just as I was debating whether to reheat last night's Chinese food or actually cook something. Holy shit. You need to call me right now. Dave never used caps. Something big had happened. I dialed so fast I nearly dropped my phone. Dave answered on the first ring, his voice hushed but vibrating with barely contained excitement. Dude. It finally happened. Dalton lost his damn mind in the quarterly board meeting. I grabbed a notepad like some war correspondent. Start from the beginning. According to Dave, who heard it from Sandra in accounting, who was married to one of the board members' assistants, Dalton had been a walking nervous wreck all morning. Kept adjusting his tie, checking his briefcase every 30 seconds like it might bite him. They were going over the Q3 projections when it happened, Dave said. Complete silence in the room, just the CFO droning on about profit margins, and then a soft, childlike boo from Dalton's briefcase. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just this perfectly timed, whispery little ghost noise that cut through the boardroom like a knife. Dalton froze. The CFO stopped mid-sentence. 12 senior executives all turned to stare at the briefcase sitting innocently on the conference table. He tried to play it cool at first, Dave continued. Did that fake cough thing people do when they fart in public. But then old man Thompson, the board chairman, asks Richard, "Is there something in your bag?" I could picture it perfectly, Dalton's eye twitch, the sweat forming on his forehead, his fingers digging into the armrests of his $2,000 ergonomic chair. That's when he snapped, Dave said. Jumped up so fast he knocked over his water glass, grabbed the briefcase, and just, a pause for dramatic effect, slammed it into the wall like he was killing a spider. Thing exploded like a piñata. Papers everywhere, the lock broke off, and guess what went skittering across the floor? The Bluetooth speaker. With my handwritten note taped to it. Dave was practically wheezing now. Thompson picks it up, reads the note out loud to the whole room, something about the ghost of employees past, and I swear to God, Mark, I thought Dalton was gonna have a stroke right there. I leaned back in my kitchen chair, staring at the ceiling. It was better than I'd imagined. Dalton hadn't just been embarrassed, he'd been publicly humiliated in front of the most important people in the company. The man who fired me for budget cuts had just destroyed a $1,500 status symbol with his bare hands. Where is he now? I asked. Dave's voice dropped to a whisper. HR escorted him out 20 minutes ago. Told everyone he's taking a temporary leave of absence. I looked over at the real Montero briefcase gathering dust in my closet. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuinely at peace. 3 days after Dalton's breakdown, I received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside were the broken remains of Montero's fake briefcase, a brass lock bent at a strange angle, and leather worn beyond recognition. Attached to the largest piece was a note written in a hand I would have recognized anywhere. "We need to talk. Coffee shop on 5th. Tomorrow at noon." I arrived early, sipping black coffee that smelled like burnt tires and watching the door like a prisoner awaiting parole. At exactly 12:01, Dalton walked in looking like he hadn't slept in a week. His usually neat suit was wrinkled, his hair slightly greasy, and for the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't carrying a briefcase. Without a word, he sat down in the chair across from me, ordered an espresso, and just stared at me with red eyes. Finally, he took a piece of paper out of his jacket pocket and placed it on the table. My note, the one that had been taped to the speaker. "You replaced me, I replaced your briefcase. Now everyone knows you're not as smart as you think you are. The ghost of former employees. I'm going to sue you," he said in an even voice. I took a slow sip of my coffee. "For what?" "For giving you a free Bluetooth speaker." His eye twitched. "For destruction of property. For harassment. For firing your nephew so you could hire me back." I interrupted. Dalton froze. The barista called him, but he didn't move. I leaned forward. "That's why we're here, isn't it? The board made you do this after your little incident. Now you need me to come back and fix Thompson's accounts before the end of the quarter." The way he clenched his jaw told me everything. I'd hit the mark. He exhaled through his nose. "What do you want?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folded piece of paper. "My terms. A 30% raise. 4 weeks vacation. And, most important, a transfer for Dalton's nephew to the Anchorage branch." As he read, I watched it sink in. The man who had fired me because of budget cuts was now in my power. I took the last sip of terrible coffee and stood up. "Think about it," I said, sliding the real Montero briefcase I'd been keeping all this time across the table toward him. "But just so we're clear, the speaker is still there." He looked up in horror as I left, and the bell above the door rang like the smallest victory medal in the world.